churches around Chicago. Now, at the same time, I said that reporter had contacted me, right? So she had emailed me right after the auction ended, because I said, I'm kind of afraid because I think this auction's going to go a little higher than the $300 it's at right now. She wrote back and she's like, wow, you're right, that thing skyrocketed. Hey, listen, my editor gave me a green light on this story. Can I actually come visit you in Chicago and go with you to your first church visits? And so this auction ended on a Friday. I was going to go that Monday to church. So she flew in on Monday to Chicago to go with me to church. Turned out she invited Jim, the pastor, to come along as well. He lived in Seattle, Washington. He flew into Chicago as well. We all went to St. Patrick's Church, that old Catholic church, and we go to service. And it was interesting, and we debriefed afterwards, and I said, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like. There was a lot of ritual that I didn't really understand, but the pastor at one point here, he was talking about some boring Catholic stuff, I don't really care. But then he started saying, when I was in college, I was a habitual smoker, and it was an addiction, and it was bad. And at one point in my life, I just said, you know what, God, I need your help, I need to quit. And one day I just said, you know what, I think God is telling me I need to quit. So he said he quit, and he quit cold turkey, and he hasn't touched a cigarette since. And I was listening to the story, and I thought, forget the God references, I thought that's a powerful story. And I was really into that. And then as soon as he finished it, he went back into, all right, now we're going to do the communion, and blah, blah. It got boring after that. And we were talking about this, and Jim and I talked about what was good, what was bad. And then they all went home, and I ended up going to a lot of different churches. That's the group I work with, Secular Student Alliance. I went to a lot of different churches. I went to an all-black church. I went to huge mega churches. That's the Catholic Church. I went to a church in a pastor's living room, because that's how big his church was. All over the place. And I started writing about this stuff on Jim's website. And what happened was really interesting. A lot of Christians were reading what I was writing. They were saying, you know what, you said you were into the sermon until the pastor got boring. I get bored in church too. And then Christians were saying, you didn't really understand this. Let me try to explain it to you. And you had atheists coming along, and they were talking about it. And the amazing thing was, it wasn't a shouting match. Christians weren't writing in all capital letters and yelling Jesus at you online. And it was actually a respectful, interesting dialogue. And so people were really into this. And this is only like 5 churches into the whole thing. And what happened is, this is a month after the auction ended. That reporter called me back about a month later. I hadn't heard from her. And she said, hey, the story's done. It's been edited. It's going to be in the paper in a couple days. So I'm like, all right, fine. So a couple days later, I wake up and I go to this convenience store downstairs where I live. And this story is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And this is the headline. And it says, on eBay, an atheist puts his own soul on the auction block. This is the scariest thing I've seen in my life. My teeth, apparently, my friend said, are bigger than my face. But this is on the front page of one of the largest papers in the world. I've heard a quotation, if you think you rule the world, you read the New York Times. If you really rule the world, you read the Wall Street Journal. This is a big paper. And I didn't really understand that, but I went downstairs to this convenience store to pick up the paper because I knew it was going to be in there, and I'm looking at it, and that's what I see, and it's freaky. And I'm like staring at it, and the convenience store owner is like, what are you looking at? I'm like, that's me. And he's like, no, it's not. And he picks up the paper, and then he's looking at the paper, and me, and the paper, and going back and forth. He's like, huh. And then he tells his other colleague, and I go back up to my room. And I'm thinking, and by the way, in addition to this, if you opened up the page, that's my picture again. There was Jim on the inside. I go up to my room and I'm thinking, it's early morning. I should shave. Because it's morning and that's what you do. And basically what does shaving, it takes up, 5 minutes of your day? I go start lathering up to shave and I couldn't shave for 4 hours because every time I lathered up, people were calling my cell phone. I don't know where they got my number from, but somehow they were getting it. And who was calling? Good Morning America, Anderson Cooper 360, Fox News Channel, local Fox, local CBS, a guy from Harvard who I've never heard of. A game show said, we need a panelist or something. The weirdest phone calls you will ever get. All of these news organizations pretty much had to cancel, but we'll talk about this. Most of them had to cancel because they had real news. But what happened is a lot of other newspapers called. The Chicago Sun-Times paper called and said, hey, that's interesting. We want to reprint the Wall Street Journal story, but we want a picture of you to go along with it. Do you know a good place we could take a picture? And I'm like, well, you can come by the place I live. I mean, there's that Catholic church nearby. I guess we could take a picture there. And the guy I talked to on the phone said, all right, call up and see if they're open. And I called the church and I'm like, hi, are you guys open? And they're like, who wants to know? Because I guess they had mentioned the church in the article. And I'm like, nobody. And they're like, no, we're closed. And so anyway, the photographer comes, we take pictures outside the church, and he's like, I believe the church is open. So we go, and the church door is open. And we realize there's stairs to the balcony, because the church is empty that day. So we run up to the balcony and we take some pictures. And the next day, here's the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times. Look at the headline, he sold his soul for $504. That's me in the Catholic Church I'm not supposed to be at anymore. But that was kind of weird. He sold his soul, because I didn't sell my soul on eBay. I did something totally different and kind of what I hoped was a little serious, not just a gimmicky, I'm selling my soul. What I found out, by the way, you can't actually sell your soul on eBay because they consider it a body part. Here's all these people saying I'm selling my soul on eBay. But the Chicago Sun-Times, it was on the front page of that. Some paper in India picked it up, and then they had it, Indian sells his soul on eBay. And then a paper found out, hey, the guy that won the auction's from Seattle. So in Seattle Times, sold on eBay, chance to save atheist soul. And again, you kind of see where this is going, because no one's getting the story quite right. But they're all trying to make it a headline story when it's not quite that. But people are interested, and they were really intrigued by the idea that this pastor was having me go to all these different churches. And one of the very few stories that I actually liked, and I thought they got it and they really understood my point of view on this, was from the Village Voice, which is an alternative paper in New York City. This is what they said, and I really appreciate it, partly because it's very nice, but also the bold-faced stuff. And you could read it. No marketing textbook will be complete without a chapter on Hemant, the 22-year-old who sold his soul on eBay. Not that he made a killing on the item, which I suppose he made a 504, presumably sold for a loss. But on the other side, hey, the stuff has racked up several ad campaigns worth of exposure for the product he was actually marketing. Atheism as a wholesome American way of life. That was really nice. No paper even got close to saying that, so that was really cool. So anyway, all this stuff is happening. Like I said, no news organization, cable news, TV news, called back. Some local stations covered it. No major news organization covered it, except for one. Guess which one that was? Fox News Channel. I hope you can hear this. We'll see if it actually works. If this works. If you could try to be quiet, let's see if this picks up. But this is what happened on Fox News Channel.